Hi, my name's Vinny.
I'm Larry.
I'm Brent.
And I'm Blake.
And this is our presentation on shark ecotourism.
What is shark ecotourism? We simplified the definition and split it into 3 different parts, so it would be easier to understand. So shark is a long-bodied, chiefly marine fish with a cartilaginous skeleton, a prominent dorsal fin, and tooth-like scales. The definition of ecotourism is tourism directed towards exotic, often threatening, natural environments, especially to support conservation efforts and observe wildlife. Shark ecotourism is tourism directed towards sharks that help support conservation efforts. The main shark ecotourism activity is shark diving. This constitutes the vast majority of activities including shark ecotourisms. Tourists enjoy viewing over 400 different species of shark during this activity. And shark diving is located in 83 different locations around the world in 29 different countries. There are 2 different types of diving. The first type is open water dives, and the second is cage dives.
So open water dives are conducted without cages, and there's many different ways you can do this. This includes drifting bait, frozen chum, feeding buckets and crates, hand feeding dives, and blue water dives. And in this type of diving, divers enter the water and float freely with sharks.
And we just put a short little clip up so you get a little bit better of an understanding of exactly what we mean when we say that they're free-floating with sharks.
So that was just generally one example, and there's many different ways that you can open water dive. One of the first ways you can open water dive is with drifting bait. So in this kind of diving, you're using strictly a snorkel, no scuba diving. You draw sharks close to you by creating a scent trail that is up current and it travels. You are normally located near natural feeding grounds away from natural landmarks, and this is one of the most challenging methods to manage because of differences in behavior of pelagic surface feeding sharks.
One of the way they make the scent trail also is by using fish oil too. So.
Another way you can open water dive is with frozen chum. And this is one of the original and preferred methods to attract sharks. It's also one of the most unpredictable, as animals are allowed full access to the bait. So while you're in the water, the bait tends to fall apart, it separates out, and then behaviors can kind of get very hard to manage. But if you do this type of diving, it's a great visual experience. Another way you can open water dive is with feeding buckets and crates. In this type of diving, the bait containers can be fixed on the bottom of the ocean, carried back and forth, lowered from the above surface support of the boat, or held directly by the diver. The observers in this case are usually scuba diving. There is a separation between the bait and food, and guest divers is more defined. This is very dangerous with specific species, including tiger sharks, because they're known to eat everything. Another type of open water dive is also hand feeding dives, and this is taking place in various locations with several species of shark. And this ranges from Caribbean reef sharks to bull sharks and sometimes even tiger sharks, which is very dangerous. you use a variety of containers and methods, and like I just said, it's very dangerous because you're up close and personal with the shark. One of the final ways that you can open water dive is blue water diving. And this is one of the best ways that you can learn about an undisturbed pelagic sharks, and you get to observe them in their natural habitat without being disturbed. In this case, groups up to 4 scuba divers work together, and they're tethered together using a floating rope that's attached to the boat. And you don't use any bait, you're just observing the sharks in their natural habitat without disturbing them.
You also have to go through a pretty lengthy certification to be able to do this type of diving, and you also have to go through a certification to be certified to scuba dive as well. So, and then the next type of diving that we talked about is cage diving. So cage diving is interesting because it can be done with or without bait. This is normally done to view larger sharks, specifically the great white shark. But it can be used for any type of species, but just normally it is the great white shark. And divers are able to observe the sharks from the safety of the cage. We also have a little clip of a cage dive, just so you can kind of understand exactly what we mean by a cage dive and what safety of a cage looks like. So in this video, they're obviously cage diving with the great white shark. And you'll see at some point that the shark kind of starts biting the cage. It's actually kind of cool. Here's Bruce. So just from that kind of short clip, it's pretty easy to see why cage diving is so popular, because it's really actually very exciting. It allows people to get close to giant sharks like that great white, and they still feel safe. So this is something that's a lot more people are open to, because they kind of do feel a lot safer being inside the cage, and then it does get them up close and personal with sharks like the great white. So there are a few different benefits of shark ecotourism. Obviously the big one is it's economically beneficial. Overall, it brings in about $314 million annually worldwide, and this is sustainable as well. So when we say that, that means that it's not, we're not harming the environment when we're doing this. This is something, instead of harming the environment, we're kind of just intervening in the environment and in a way still making profit off of it. Compared to, like, say, shark finning or something like that. It's projected to over double to $700 million per year, which is good. Global shark fisheries earn about $630 million annually, but that has been declining. And another big thing about ecotourism, not so much economically based, is that it promotes conservation. So this is big because tourists really do come face to face with the world's most misunderstood creatures, being sharks. Most people don't really get the opportunity to go see sharks in the wild like that, and so once they are in those cages and or free dive with those sharks, and they do get a better understanding and probably more of an appreciation for sharks as a whole. Also, tourists are educated in the different aspects of sharks as well, because they need to understand sharks once they're going to dive with them. So it does overall help prepare people a little bit to understand and appreciate sharks more. This is just like a little slide that shows you the value of a shark based in diving, and which places kind of make the most money, and what type of sharks are viewed the most and how much they make. So I believe Fiji, so Fiji makes the most per year, so they make about $42.2 million a year, obviously kickstarting their economy quite a bit. And then you also have places like that still make money but don't make quite as much, like South Africa. Obviously, if you've ever seen the Jaws, Air Jaws, that was based in South Africa. So that's also one of the reasons why they make $4.2 million a year, because that documentary helped start them being able to dive with sharks and cage diving as well. So this kind of just shows you overall what some of the different places and the different types of sharks that they view as well. And then, for example, this is a good example. So this is a place in Mexico. This is in one of our slides in one of our PowerPoints too, but we did do a little research on it. Isla Mujeres. They did have great success because they transitioned from being a fishing-based economy and killing a lot of sharks per year, and then they kind of changed that all and became a tourist-based economy. So they have the world's second largest barrier reef system, and it's really popular to swim with whale sharks there. And that is one of the big things, because they are so massive, so many people want to come see them. It's pretty popular to swim with whale sharks there, and in addition to that, they have a big profit from scuba diving and snorkeling as well, and that's partially based on because there are so many whale sharks there, and because of that, there are a bunch of large fish there because there's high plankton populations, and this has boosted the economy and helped locals in the surrounding areas.
And this just highlights one great thing about shark ecotourism, in that when you're based on a fishing economy, you're killing the sharks, and that's a one-time moneymaker, where they're just using the sharks and constantly using them, and you're not really using up your big profit maker.
So while there's many benefits to shark ecotourism, there's also a pushback. One of the major things is that scientists question how shark diving can impact shark behaviors in the habitats. By people constantly being present, doing all the types of dives that we discussed, it could disrupt the eating behaviors, force the sharks to migrate away from what their normal habitat would be. It can also lead to competition between the shark species. So with that, the migration, it would cause a cascading effect in other ecosystems, where one species of shark would force other species of sharks to get less food from having to compete from the lower populations of lower trophic levels. And along with that, tourists may harm the sharks. As Vinny was saying before, a lot of the shark diving, in order for people to go shark diving, they're required to go through a lot of different certifications. And if they don't go through these certifications and don't pay attention to all the details, they could accidentally do things that might harm the sharks. So basically, this can all be avoided with safe and regulated diving procedures. Make sure you pay attention and do all the certifications you need. And so that's for that. And sum it all up, if performed properly, shark diving ecotourism can become a huge measure in shark conservation. As we saw in the video, people love diving with the sharks. I think it's a great thing. Being able to get more exposure to those kind of activities would have a major effect on spreading the word about shark conservation. We get people less afraid of sharks and more interested in trying to engage in the sharks. It can combat the negative media attention on sharks as well, just getting that exposure, and it could be a huge money generator for individuals, communities, and cities, just trying to get people out there being more engaged in the shark community. And that is our presentation.
Thank you.
Thank you.